Hey, what's up everybody? Too Tall Toby here, and in today's SOLIDWORKS step-by-step tutorial, we're gonna create this model here. This is a really fun tutorial because we get into things like how to work with symmetry and how to create some layout geometry to help you maintain the customer's dimensions without having to model the whole thing. We can just create half the model, but still maintain the customer's dimensions. So that's what we're gonna get into today. If you wanna give this thing a try yourself, I'll bring it up on screen here so you can pause the video, do a screen capture, maybe try to model it yourself, and then come back and watch the rest of the tutorial. I think that's a great way to learn. And this challenge actually comes from our library of 2D to 3D CAD challenges found over at tootalltoby.com. So here you can see the website, tootalltoby.com. You can sign up for a free account, and then you're going to be able to access some of our 2D to 3D CAD challenges. We have a library of over 150 challenges. Some of these are free for anyone with a free account, and some of them are reserved for people who have signed up for our Practice Models Premium subscription. And this is one of those models. It's 24-03-04, and we had one of our members from Practice Models Premium reach out to us and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this model. I'd love to see a tutorial using SOLIDWORKS. So if that all sounds good to you, be sure to hit the like button on this video. And because I've got access to Practice Models Premium, I can use the try again function. So let's click try again. And here we go in 3, 2, 1, go. So the clock is running, and the question is, what is the mass of this part in XXX grams? We're going to enter that answer right down here, and you can click this button here, open in new window. This is pretty nice because this lets us move this over to our second monitor so that we can work on the drawing and keep our CAD on our main monitor. So the first thing that I do, even though the clock is running, is I try to come up with a game plan. And one of the first questions I ask myself is, where should the origin be located? And in the case of this model here, I think because we have symmetry going in two directions, we're going to put the origin right here, right at the center of this hole. So that gives us kind of our basic game plan as to where the origin should be. We're also going to notice here that on this model, we've got these holes with these sleeves sticking out the front, but not out the back. So we've got mostly symmetry going from the front to the back, but not complete symmetry. So what that tells me is that I'm probably going to start out by creating this shape here, this geometry here, and then I can just mirror that geometry across the center line. Now there is going to be some additional mirroring that I'm going to be able to take advantage of, and we'll see that as we get into the tutorial. So I think that for my first sketch, I'll create a sketch here on the right plane that looks kind of like this. Kind of this main shape here, and then I'll extrude that out to where this face will be, and then my second sketch is going to look something like this, the kind of outer shape, and then I'll extrude that out the rest of the way. Then I think my third sketch is going to be maybe this shape here, this sleeve. I'll probably sketch it in the middle, and I'll probably just sketch half of it and then extrude that all the way through to the back. And then I'll create the geometry for these sleeves here, these little solid sleeves. Whenever you're working in 3D CAD, you always want to start with your solid geometry and save your cuts for later in the design, especially when you've got overlapping geometry like we're going to have in this model here. So do your solids first, then do your cuts at the end. Now, the final thing that I want to mention about this design is that there is something that's a little tricky. I don't normally do this, but in this design I did for some reason. And what's tricky about this design is that the center of these sleeves is not exactly the same location as the center of these other arcs, these outer arcs here that are running up and over the model. So these outer arcs here that are running up and over the model are at a center-to-center distance of 92, and the center-to-center for those sleeves is at a distance of 90. Now, you can kind of interpret that when you look at the drawing here, and you notice that the dashed line here is almost coming to the point of tangency, where the dashed line here is intersecting that circle a little bit lower than the point of tangency up top here. And you can also kind of decipher it here from the section view using that kind of same observation, this tangency point down here compared to running into the circle up top there. But it's definitely a little tricky and something that you want to be on the lookout for. I think that because of that, I'm going to use some layout geometry. I'm going to use some layout geometry to define what this 50 width is here, this 50 width, and also what this 92 width is here to the center of these arcs. So it's 92 to get to the center of this radius here, this radius 18. Well, I think if I create some layout geometry, maybe like a 50 by 92 rectangle. That'll really help me with that process. And I could even go as far as creating an additional rectangle here that represents the width of this shape here, the width of these barriers here at 15 millimeters on each side. So let's jump into SolidWorks and we'll see what that looks like. I know that I spent a couple of minutes there kind of coming up with a game plan, but I think it's always important to come up with a game plan. Now let's use that game plan to kind of get through the modeling process a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go into SolidWorks here, jump into SolidWorks, and once I get into SolidWorks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's get into SolidWorks here. Here we go. So we're going to jump into SolidWorks here, and once we get into SolidWorks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by beginning a new model. The model is using plain carbon steel. Let me bring up my keyboard cam here. The model is using plain carbon steel, and that's shown in the title block, and it's in millimeters. And then I'm going to go to my front plane, begin a sketch, and right here on the origin, I'm going to create a center point rectangle. So I'm using my S key to bring up my S key menu. I've got another video all about the S key menu. And then I'm going to create a center point rectangle here, and I'm going to use my auto dimensioning to dimension those key dimensions, 92, enter, and 50, enter. And then maybe I'll create some additional rectangles or even just some additional lines. So I could create a center line here, for example, and create a center line that goes from this point over to a distance of 15. So we'll use our auto dimensioning there, center line, come over there to a distance of 15, enter. And we'll create another center line over here, single click, move our mouse over, and we'll make that distance 15 as well. Now, here's a little trick that I'll do when I know I've got symmetry or I've got equals relationships. I'll take this dimension here and I'll right click and I'll say I want that to be driven. So now you can see I can take this point and drag it wherever I want. And then I'll take this line, hold control, take this line, let go of control, and make those equal. Finally, I'll take this dimension, which is currently a lighter gray, and maybe I'll put it in parentheses just to kind of remind myself that that is driven. So I'll click down here in the dimension properties, click on the dimension to bring up that property manager, and then I'll click down here to make that dimension parentheses. So I know that that one's driven. This is the driving dimension. So the reason that I do that is it just makes it really easy to look at those dimensions later on, like if you're having a design review with the customer, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So now that I've got that geometry in place, I can exit that sketch, and now I can go to my right plane, and on my right plane, I'm going to begin a sketch. So right plane, begin a sketch. I'm going to create a sketch of a slot. So I'll create a slot here that just maybe looks a little something like this. And then I'll hit escape, and I'll take this point of the slot, hold control, pick this line, let go of control, pierce, and I'll take this point, hold control, pick this line here, let go of control, pierce. And of course, I've got a video on pierce as well if you want to learn more about that. But basically what I'm doing is I'm saying I want this point in the sketch to exist where this line passes through the sketch. That's how pierce works. And in the case of using a layout, that's very helpful because now I know that that distance is going to be 90 millimeters, or 92 millimeters, excuse me, from that first sketch, 92 millimeters. So now that I've got the correct height of that slot in place, I can just add in my final dimension for that slot, which looks like it's going to be a radius of, let me zoom in here on this. I think the slot radius there, yeah, is going to be our radius of 18. So we'll add in our radius here of 18, and boom, that sketch is nice and fully constrained or fully defined. I'm going to do S key extrude, and this extrusion is going to go up to a vertex. Now, in SOLIDWORKS 2020 and earlier, all I got to do is click on that vertex. In SOLIDWORKS 2022 and newer, it might work, it might not work, because how they changed the way extrude works. They changed the logic behind the end condition. Personally, I actually don't really like that. I like it better when I can just click on that vertex. But you'll notice over here that this says blind currently. And if I just pick on this vertex here, boom, now I've got an extrusion up to vertex, and it's very easy to establish that by using that logic that used to be in SolidWorks. If it's not in your version of SolidWorks, then just manually change your end condition to up to vertex, and then you can pick on that vertex there. So we hit the green check mark, and now we can pick this face, S key, begin a sketch, press the Control 8 to get normal 2 there, Control 8. So now we're in a new sketch. Whoops, sorry, Control 8. And now we can create the geometry for that kind of outer shape. So now we're going to get in here and create this geometry. And we're really only going to create it like that. We're just going to create 1/4 of it and mirror it. So to create that 1/4 of it, we're going to use the line arc line workflow. So pick this line command, single click here at the origin, come straight up, single click again, move your mouse away, come back over that endpoint, and then move your mouse away again. And if you do it exactly to the left here, you can see that you can get an arc that's coming off of tangency to the perpendicular. It kind of has to do with the direction you move your wrist after you hold your mouse over that point. So that's a nice little shortcut to learn. And then I can let go of my mouse and I can type in the radius there, which has a radius of 25. Enter. And then we will move our mouse down to about here, single click, move our mouse down in this direction, pick up on tangency by putting your mouse directly over that yellow dashed line, single click, move your mouse away, move back, move your mouse over again. And then we can let go of our mouse and we can type in a radius here of 38. Enter. And so then we can kind of single click down here. You can't get it exactly horizontal to the center point, so don't worry about trying. If you're close, you can come down here horizontal to the origin, which is nice, but you can also just kind of single click here, move your mouse over and single click again. Then you can hit escape, and then you can take this point, hold control, this point, which is the center of this arc, let go of control, and you can make those coincident or merge points. And then you can do the same thing, click in the background, click this point, hold control, pick this point here, let go of control, and once again, you can do a merge points, and that takes the center of this 38 arc and puts it exactly here at the origin, and we can see that being called out here in this view. So the 38 arc, the center of that 38 arc is directly on the origin. So another good reason that we chose that location as our origin. So now the final thing we have to do is just locate the center of this radius 18, which is going to once again be located on our layout geometry for that 92. So we can kind of just roll the view around a little bit, pick this point here at the corner of the rectangle, hold control, pick this point here, let go of control, and we can say make coincident, and then that locks down that location, and you can see it kind of locks down the entire sketch. So now that we've got that sketch nice and fully defined or fully constrained, we can either extrude it and mirror it twice, or we could mirror it at the sketch level. It doesn't really matter to me. You could do either one. I think they both have a valuable workflow. So they both work. I'll probably just do it at the sketch level. So I'll take this line here, say make that for construction. Take this line here, say make that for construction. And then what you can do is you can do a crossing select. So if you press Control 8 again to get normal 2, you can start here on the right and drag to the left so that you get all the geometry except for this bottom construction line. And then you can say mirror. So you just click the mirror entities command in sketch mode. That mirrors it across. And then you can kind of do the same thing. This time what I'll do is I'll unselect this extra line. So I'll just put a window around everything. And then I'll hold control to unselect this line here. So we are unselecting this line, this extra construction line, because we don't want to have two construction lines. If you only have one single construction line and then you click the mirror entities command, SOLIDWORKS doesn't ask you for anything else. It just automatically mirrors it. If you have multiple construction lines and then you click mirror, SOLIDWORKS is going to say, well, what do you want to mirror about? So that's why I unselected that extra construction line. It's just a nice little workflow to learn to kind of save some time. So now that we've got that geometry mirrored in two directions, now we can choose to extrude, so features extrude. And then once again, we can just choose this little point here, this point right here, and then that changes our extrusion type to up to vertex. If you're in an earlier version of SOLIDWORKS, if you're in a newer version, you just got to manually pick it here, fly this out, choose up to vertex, and then you can choose that vertex from your layout sketch. Now you can see here that the layout sketch is gray. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. So one thing that I like to do, let me cancel that extrusion. One thing that I like to do is I like to exit this sketch and then just go over here in the tree and I'll right click on that layout sketch and I'll choose sketch color. And then you can make that a color that really pops, like a magenta, like a purple there. Something that's really easy to see and really easy to select, especially when your parts are gray. So now if I get back into this sketch where I was a moment ago and then S key extrude, and then I pick on that point there, well, oh yeah, look at that. That is much better. We like that a lot. So we hit the green check mark and boom, there is our sidewall extrusion. Easy peasy. So now we can go through and we can start adding in some of or we can add in those final sleeves. So once again, for those sleeves, I might consider creating some layout geometry. You know, I don't really think it's necessary. I mean, the depth of the one sleeve here is 26 in the one direction and then 52 in the other direction. So essentially it's 52 mid-plane. So that one's pretty clear, pretty clear cut. And then same thing here, the depth of the other extrusion for the sleeve here is just 22 off the mid plane. So probably don't need to create a layout sketch, but certainly you could consider doing that, especially if you were going to be doing some mirroring with some of that geometry. Like if you decided to maybe only create the front half of this model and then you were going to mirror it, then maybe you'd want to consider creating some layout geometry again. I don't think it's necessary here. I think it might be overkill. So I'm just going to go front plane, begin a sketch, get normal 2, so control 8 for normal 2, S key, circle, and I'm going to be creating a circle here right at the middle of the model. So create a circle here like so, and that's going to have a diameter of 52, enter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line, so S key line, and I'll create a line that goes from quadrant point to quadrant point. And what that does for me is it lets me split up this circle. Now, I could extrude it and then select this region in the contour selection, but the other thing that I'll do a lot of times in this spot is I will go into the trim command, so trim entities, and then in the trim command, I'll use this option down here. Keep trimmed entities as construction geometry. So what that lets me do is lets me trim through the circle here, but it just makes that half of the circle construction. This is for construction now. And so that's really helpful because now when I go into my extrude command, I'm only going to be extruding that one half of the circle, but I didn't have to lose the entire circle just for sake of reference. So when you're mirroring, a lot of times I'll draw the whole thing and then I'll just trim half of it. And instead of getting rid of it, I'll make one half of it construction. So here, again, if you're pretty confident that the customer is always going to have that central sleeve going out mid-plane, then I would probably just make this 52, enter, and then I would move my mouse a little bit and right-click in the background and say mid-plane, and then right-click again. I'm pretty confident the customer is going to always have that symmetric, so I'm just going to do it that way. And so now I'm ready to create those other sleeves up at the top and at the bottom. So I'll go front plane, begin a sketch, orient my view, control 8 to orient my view. S key, I'm going to create a line here and I'm going to make this line, actually I'll make this a construction line. So S key, center line, and we'll make a center line here that has the center to center distance for those holes at 90 millimeters. And then I can hit escape and then I can pick that line, hold control, pick the origin, let go of control and make that midpoint. Now, that's very helpful because that means that now when I go to create my circles, I could just create the circle here and the circle at the bottom. So I could create a circle here. So I could say, I want to make a circle right on this point here, move my mouse, let go of my mouse, and that sleeve has a diameter of, let's see here, 19 for the diameter of that sleeve. And then I'll do the same thing I did earlier. I'll make this dimension here 19 as well. And then I'll just hit escape, right click, driven, sorry, change to driven. So hit escape. So I'm not seeing it on there. Let me just try it again. Hit escape, right click, and then I'm going to say driven. Jeez, it was right there in front of me. I just couldn't see it. And then I'll click on that dimension and add the parentheses. And then I'll click this circle, hold control, click this circle, let go of control. I'm going to make them equal. And then S key extrude. And that is going to go out to a depth of 22, enter, enter. See, I love the way the old version of SOLIDWORKS would just always let you type in the depth. It always goes back to blind. That's what I like. There is one thing I noticed here after I did those extrusions. Let's edit that sketch. So edit sketch, get normal 2 here. And let's just do the same trick that we did earlier. So we'll make a line here that goes from quadrant to quadrant. We will make a line here that goes from quadrant to quadrant. And then it looks like I created an extra line here. So let me just delete that extra line. S key, trim, and we will trim here and trim here. And then exit that sketch and boom, there we go. We got it right. So create your solid geometry first, then go through and start punching your holes in your geometry, and you'll find yourself in a great spot. So to punch those holes in the geometry, we'll start out here on the right plane, S key, create a circle. Right here at the origin, move our mouse, let go of our mouse. We're going to type in a diameter there of 35, enter, S key, extrude cut, move your mouse a little bit, right click, come down here to through all, left click, and then immediately right click again. I prefer to make these holes as 2 separate features rather than making them all the same feature. In fact, this one up here is actually going to be a counter bore coming in from the side, so maybe I'll just save that for the end. So front plane, begin a sketch, S key, circle, single click here at the origin, move our mouse, let go of our mouse. That one's going to have a diameter of 40. Enter, S key, extrude cut, right click in the background, go down here to through all both directions, and then right click again. And then we're going to go front plane again, begin a sketch, S key, circle, and we're going to single click here, type in the diameter there of, what are those holes, 12? Yeah, 12, enter, move down here, single click, move your mouse, single click again, hit escape, pick one, hold control, pick the other, let go of control, make those concentric. Sorry, I'm going to control Z there. Make those equal. There we go. Always good to know that you can control Z to quickly undo a relationship. And then we're going to take this arc here and this arc, and then let go of control and make those concentric. This arc here and this arc, let go of control, make those concentric. There we go. That's what we wanted. And then S key, extrude cut, and that's going to go right mouse button, reverse direction. Move your mouse a little bit, right mouse button, through all, and then immediately right mouse button without moving your mouse to hit the green check mark. And there we go. And then I think the final thing that we're going to do here is going to be those counter bores. So for those counter bores, we're going to pick here. We can go into Hole Wizard. Now you can do this as sketches, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to do it with Hole Wizard. So you pick this face, go to Hole Wizard. And then once you go to Hole Wizard, you can go here to Positions. So you go here to Positions, put your mouse over this arc here. You can move your mouse down. You can click on this point here. You can see that currently I'm using a countersink. It doesn't matter what type of hole you're using. But what I like to do is just kind of wake up each of these center points by putting my mouse over the edge. And then I come in here and pick on this point. And then you do that on the tab here that says Positions. And then you can go back here to the tab that says Type. So we go back to the tab here that says Type. It's going to be a counter bore. So counter bore, and then what I do is I usually go down here to where it says custom sizing, show custom sizing for that counter bore. Make your end condition through all. Maybe just take a moment, make sure your end condition is through all. Make sure none of these are checked down here. None of these should be checked. That should be through all. And then you can just go through your custom sizing and you can add in the sizing that's on that drawing. So it looks like the sizing on that drawing is going to be a counter bore diameter of 40 that we're looking at there. 40 for that counter bore. Yep, 40. And then it's going to be a counter bore or hole diameter there of, let's see what is running through there. Hole diameter of 14. Counter bore diameter of 40. I'm using the tab key to advance there. And then a counter bore depth of 7. So 1447. We got our positions locked in. We hit the green check mark and yeah, that looks good. So then the final thing that we'll do here is we'll just go into mirror. And for our mirror, we're going to pick this face here. We're going to move over to our bodies to mirror. So you got features to mirror, faces to mirror, bodies to mirror. We'll click on this body here. We'll make sure that merge solids is selected. We hit the green check mark. And at this point, we can bring up our mask properties, or we could go into our sensors. If you set up your sensors here, press Control Q to rebuild so that the whole thing rebuilds. Or you could go into evaluate. When you go into evaluate, you could go in here to mask properties. That gives you your mask as well. We'll take this number here, Control C to copy that number. And let's go back into our modeling environment. And we'll click here in the background and Control V for mask and enter. And oh yeah, when that purple box shows up, that purple box tells us that we did it correctly. And so now that we did this correctly, we're going to say submit. And boom, we did it. So that is your SolidWorks step-by-step tutorial for that challenge. It's kind of a beefy challenge there, the Tier 5 challenge. You can see here that if I look at my data and analytics now, my first run was 20 minutes, 15 seconds. Then I started getting my time down 19 minutes, getting my time down to 18 minutes, and then boom, it went way back up here, back up to 21 minutes. And so that certainly can happen. And if it does happen, it's unfortunate, but it is something that can happen. There's actually kind of a little secret hack here that you can do if you're working in the app here and you go into My Analytics. So if you go in here to My Analytics, and then you find that particular run. So that run was done, let's see, your model number 24-03-04, and that one was 21 minutes and 29 seconds. You can actually delete that run. So if you do happen to have a run where you get interrupted or something occurs that really throws your analytics out of whack, you've got the ability to get in there and kind of tidy it up a little bit. So it's a little bit of a secret functionality, but I always like to share that with our premium members so that they know that there's a lot of cool stuff you can do to help track your analytics. So, but for now, that is your step-by-step tutorial on this model 24-03-04, the pump body. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought about this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions. And of course, be sure to sign up over at tootalltoby.com. You can sign up for free to get started. And then if you want to help support the channel, and if you really enjoy the challenges, you can sign up for our Practice Models Premium subscription. Thanks a lot, everybody, and I will see you in the next step-by-step tutorial.